Right, it is 6:30. Let's call to order the committee for Charter and Rules. My name is Meg McGrath Smith, and to my left is Councilor and City Council President Tessa Murphy-Ramboletti. On Zoom, we are joined by committee member Linda Vacan. And in chambers, thank you for joining us. We have Councilor DEVINE, Councilor Jordan, Councilor Bartley, and Councilor Ocasio. Thank you all for joining us today. And also on Zoom, we have Councilor Givner. So thank you all for joining us today. It is Monday, March 3rd, 2025. It is 6:30 p.m. We are meeting here at Holyoke City Hall, and all members of the public are always welcome to come in and sit in chambers and listen to our meeting here, or you can Zoom in. Or you can watch on Channel 15. And live Spanish interpretation is available on the local access Channel 15 using the television's SAP option through the live stream on the city website, as well as on Zoom by clicking the interpretation option and choosing Spanish. And thank you to our interpreter tonight. I'd like to entertain a motion to take a roll call vote that for the purposes of this meeting that would be applicable to all motions to remove an item from the table, place items on the table, package items, or suspend the rules unless there is an objection.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. And that is because we have a member of ours on Zoom tonight, and so we will move through roll call votes tonight as a result. Okay. Let's begin.
Motion to take item 1 off the table.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Item 1 is minutes of the January 27th, 2025 meeting. Under discussion?
No discussion.
All right. To have a motion to approve the minutes as such?
Motion to approve the minutes from January 27th.
Second.
All right. And let's vote. Councilor Vacan?
Yes.
Councilor McGrath Smith? Yes. Councilor Murphy-Ramboletti?
Yes.
Okay. With that, we have passed the minutes. A motion to take off item 2.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Item 2, this is from September of this year, filed by Councilor Murphy-Ramboletti. Order that the City Council amend its rules to identify which committees certain licenses should be sent to in an effort to ensure consistency and clarity. I'd love to defer to the maker of the order.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I initially had filed this order just because it was actually our administrative assistant and I who were talking about how sometimes certain licenses go to, most of them go to finance. It says in our rules that they should go to finance, but every now and then they go to ordinance, like the street vendor licenses, and I just wanted to make sure that everything was clarified, and if there's any like confusion, or if the street vendor licenses should just go to ordinance, that's fine. I don't have a preference either way. It was more about just making things a little clearer. And that led to another conversation with Jeffrey and myself just about the special permits that go to different subcommittees. It's pretty clear in the rules, because most of them just go to DGR, but and then obviously the other ones that do go to the ordinance committee. So some of this Jeffrey and I have tried to address ourselves just with either the makers of the orders or whatever, but that was really the reasoning behind why this order got filed, just to make things a little clearer. Jeffrey, since you were part of those conversations, if there's anything I left out that you feel is worth noting, obviously,
Please.
I welcome that.
Yeah, part of it is just for that, oftentimes things get referred based on what whoever makes the motion, what their recollection is of where they went before. And the point has been made that the council can send them wherever they want, but for clarity and transparency for the public, maybe it makes sense to just clarify if it means changing the rules, just clarifying where things should be going. I will also note that I have seen some of the licenses get sent to DGR on occasion as well.
Is there anyone else who wants to speak to how licenses are currently being sent to any committee? Yes, Councilor Bartley?
Yes, so the reason there might be some confusion is because in 2016, when Rebecca Lisi was the chair of ordinance, it was just an unbelievably overwhelmed committee. And I was the chair of DGR, the committee that I kind of put together with Kevin's help. And Rebecca, we had a great conversation on the floor. It wasn't behind doors, it was just on the floor. And Rebecca suggested that permits, to alleviate some of the burden on ordinance, should go to DGR, and we immediately acquiesced. I think what we're suggesting here is that you want to put it, memorialize in a rule. I don't think that's a problem doing that. So I think you could just say, special permits can go to DGR. You can put it in a rule under the DGR verbiage and wherever that is in here under the description of committees. I haven't looked well enough to see if it's already been done, but that's the reason why we did it. And it's been working well ever since. But I can see where there's, the change in the council, and I can see how it makes sense for efficiency purposes just to memorialize it in writing. So I would say, again, you can do what you want, but the ordinance committee's pretty well stacked, and the DGR committee certainly has a capability to handle this aspect. So I would say leave it the way it is, but just maybe put it in writing. Thank you.
I have one question that I would love to name because maybe someone else in this room can answer it. So I was going to the rules for where I see petition versus license. And we have Rule 9B 2, which says petitions for licenses fall under finance. And we also have 9K, which names specific types of permits that fall underneath finance. And then, of course, we have a number of places where we name in the rules where the permits are. And those, are really specific. So it says currently that the permits for home occupation are going to be done by Public Service and the Human Resources Committee. And that language in and of itself, I think maybe that's something that we have to bring up almost as a separate order, because in that section there, it says a lot that it doesn't seem to me that that's what we're doing. It says the Public Service and Human Resources Committee shall have jurisdiction over matters related to transportation, the affairs of the Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Department, the appointment or election of city officials, matters related to city employees and personnel, permits for home occupation issued by the City Council, and matters pertaining to the elderly, the Geriatric Authority, and the Council on Aging.
Well, we know how long we have a geriatric authority,
I know.
so
Yeah.
that can be deleted. I think you just make a motion just to delete. I don't think you have to have a committee meeting. And then, now that I'm looking at this, DGR committee shall have jurisdiction over all council issued special permits, except for home occupation and marijuana establishments.
Right, because marijuana goes to finance and.
Well, it never did, but if they, leave it in finance, whatever, who cares now? And home occupation, I think it belongs in finance. So, but everything else would have been covered there. So it looks like it's covered. I think maybe the committee should maybe just take a look. This committee should maybe take a look at just a general review of these committees and maybe
Agreed.
come back with a recommendation once you've had a chance to really digest it. But to me, it seems like this is complied with.
Councilor Bacon has her hand up.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Councilor Bacon?
Thank you. So I just wanted to know that our order is specific to the licenses.
Yeah.
And it might clarify, although I think you just read that the Finance Committee is listed for most of the licenses in the rules already.
By my reading of the rules, all of them.
Okay. So it seems like for this particular order, we have clarified everything. And maybe if somebody wants to write a broader order to look at some different things, we could do that separately. But this to me looks like it's complied with.
Well, one of my questions is right now we have been sending street vendor to ordinance, but it doesn't sound from our rules that we should be. It sounds like we should be sending all licenses to finance.
Well, so our rules allow for us to send anything to any committee that we want. And I think ordinance has been doing the street vendor licenses because we're allowing use of the public street. But I'm not sure that matters. But anyway, thank you.
Yes, Councilor Murphy-Ramboletti?
Oh, one of the ones that I did note was any of the rental licenses. I don't think that's like clearly stated in the actual rules, but I agreed with Councilor Bartley, his suggestion on just there. I think there's probably just a few things that could be cleaned up, but I also think at the we've talked about also filing a similar order that has to do with special permits, which is sounds similar to Councilor Bacon's suggestion. So that can be something that between now and then, like I can check in with our administrative assistant on some of the sort of things that he's noticed, and we can just go from there. And then probably at the next meeting, we can just approve it.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I will say that it does say in our rules that any license that calls for police surveillance shall be presented to City Council. And I wonder if that includes police. Does that mean police presence? I'm just sort of wondering about the meaning of that, because I think often street, yeah, I don't know. It would just make me wonder exactly what that meant. Okay. Councilor Givner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just noticing too that the special, not special permit, but the street vendor renewal licenses and like general renewal license come to DGR. I think that's a good fit for it, just because, you know, we already have a relationship with those vendors, but I just wanted to bring that up and see if we still think that's a good idea, because I think it's a good place to keep it.
Well, so what I'm wondering is, does it make sense to amend our council rules in order to allow the street vendor licenses to go to DGR and to allow that? Because we could.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
So, but the street vendor licenses have been coming to DGR, some of them, but generally we get the renewals. So if they're, yeah, I mean, I'm fine with them going to DGR. I guess I just don't quite understand why they specifically come. We obviously have the capacity to do those. So if it's a capacity issue, I think it's a good place for them. Yeah.
Well, especially because under V, it says that the Development and Government Relation Committee shall have jurisdiction over matters related to the affairs of the Office of Community Development, Office of Industrial Affairs. Does that exist still? I'm not sure. Any matters related to the housing or community economic or industrial development. I can see like economic development does relate to street vendors. Like that makes a lot of sense to me in terms of naming it there. So I wonder if we want to amend V to include language allowing for the street vendor licenses to be taken up there.
Got it.
So the last line of V right now says the D&GR committee shall have jurisdiction over all council-related special permits, except for home occupation and marijuana establishments. We could also add to that, shall have jurisdiction over street vendor licenses and over all council-issued special permits.
That seems like that would clarify it, yeah.
Okay. Just writing it down. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to insert the language street vendor licenses and after the word jurisdiction in Rule 9B, I'm saying V, but it's 10.
It's 5. So moved. That was a motion, right? So
Yep.
moved.
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Oh, we have to roll call.
Aye.
All right, Councilor Bacon.
Aye.
Councilor McGrath Smith, yes. Councilor Murphy Ramboletti.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all for weighing in on that. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to take up, actually, can we take up item
Motion
4?
to take up items 3 and 4 as a package.
Okay, yeah, that would work.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so item 3 is from Givner and Tallman with community support order that all ordinances and charter rules reflecting city council and city council subcommittee meeting notices be updated to reflect acceptance of email as sufficient method of notice and city website posting as sufficient method of public notice. Item 4 is Givner with community support order that the following section of our codes of ordinances and the charter be updated to reflect use of email as sufficient for special meeting notice. And that section says specifically, special meetings of council. Section 12, the mayor may anytime call a special meeting of the city council by public posting through the city website, along with written notifications thereof, together with a statement of the subjects to be considered thereat, to be deposited in the post office, post-paid and addressed to the persons to be notified at least 48 hours before the time appointed for such meeting, or to be left at the usual place of residence of each member of the council, by email at least 48 hours before the time appointed for such meeting. Okay, under discussion. I have some documents here that I want to share as we jump into conversation. What you have on the screen in front of you is specific to the fourth item because it does require shifts in both the charter and ordinance. So that document is being presented there. And I just want to name what the changes are. So I've read the original out, section 12. The proposed revision as it currently stands, and I'm hoping to wordsmith it and revise it together with you all, is that we should change section 12 by amending the following, striking out all words after thereat and adding the following language. To be electronically delivered to all council members at least 48 hours prior to the commencement of the meeting. Members of the city council may elect to alternatively receive all such notices by hand delivery to their place of residence or to their city hall mailbox by designating their preference to the clerk or the assistant to the city council. I also want to name that through my work with Solicitor Bissonnette, we also have the language down below around the changes that would need to be made in ordinance. I don't know if we here really have any jurisdiction over that language. I just want to name that it is there. And likely from this, what we would need to do is send this to ordinance for those changes to be made there, right? Because this has to, change in both places. And it would, of course, would require us, because it's charter change, to go through a home rule petition process. Whether singularly or combined with something else, I still think that it's important for us to get the language in the right place so we know what it is that we would be asking for as we move forward through a process towards a home rule petition. I want to ask our city council assistant to quickly weigh in with some information he received on this topic, and then I'll call on Councilor Bacon and then anyone else who'd like to weigh in. Jeffrey, would you mind sharing your information that you found out through your research?
Yeah, so after the last meeting, there was discussion at the last meeting about the concern with the delay in mail going out because it's sorted down in Holyoke. And Councilor DEVINE mentions that there used to be a slot at the post office for Holyoke-specific mail. And so I called the post office about it. And they said that you could drop off mail at the counter there at the post office and specifically let them know that it's local mail, and they will keep it there rather than sending it out to Hartford. And in fact, I dropped off today's agenda for the three counselors that prefer to have their agendas mailed, all of the agendas mailed to them. I dropped them off at the post office on Friday and let them know that they were going to be local, and they put a specific stamp on them when that's the case. So I don't know how quickly they got there, but that is a way of having it get to people a little bit quicker.
Yes. All right, Councilor Bacon, Councilor Ocasio, and Councilor Devine.
Thank you. So I would like to say that I like the language because it provides for the hand delivery option, and it's not so specific that it would rule out a variety of ways of achieving the hand delivery if it was needed. I'm thinking, just as a practical matter, if it was 3 or fewer, it probably wouldn't be too much on our administrative assistant, but if it became a greater number than that, that there might want to be an alternative sought for the logistics of it. But in general, I'm happy to see that both options are in there, because we could have a situation where our electronics went down or our grid went down. So we always need to keep a backup in mind. So I think that part looks pretty good. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Ocasio?
I just wanted to know that, let Jeffrey know that I got my agenda in on Saturday. If you know the Friday, I got it in on Saturday. I got it.
That's really good. So Councilor Ocasio just said that Jeffrey said that he put it in the mail on Friday, Holyoke only, and it was delivered Saturday. I think that's a really good thing for us to know in terms of noticing. And Jeffrey, could you share that too with the clerk? Because I feel like that could be helpful in certain situations where we really need to get something out sooner rather than later. It's good information. Thank you for that research.
Yeah, absolutely. Can I offer one brief
Yes, please.
concern about the language? So on the hand delivery.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just wonder because only a federal officer, post officer, can put mail in a mailbox. So I wonder what would happen in cases where somebody might not be home at the time an agenda is being sought to be delivered by hand.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone in the room has a thought on that, whether it would just be folks would accept it. They can't go in your mailbox. They'll have to put it in front of your door or in between, the screen door and the real door, as so many of us have in this area. Councilor Bacon, did you want to respond to that?
I was just going to say what you just said. Thank you.
Okay, sure. All right, Councilor Devine.
Sure. I'm sorry.
And then Councilor Givner, absolutely. So sorry.
Microphone.
Oh,
Patty.
Councilor Devine, can you
The
speak into the microphone? I can't hear you.
Jeffrey, did you have to wait in line when you went to the post office?
Yes, I did. I mean, I'm not sure if I absolutely needed to, but I wasn't going to jump ahead of people.
Okay.
Just
And the other question is, if we're saying that our administrative assistant should be the one that hand delivers agendas, will he get mileage? I mean, he's using his own car,
Yeah,
so.
I think that makes sense. Do we need to name that anywhere specific to make that occur, or do we need to
City
run
has
that
a travel
through?
policy, for all employees.
Okay.
We should go by that, which.
And you
provides
think
it.
that it would fall underneath that? Okay, that's a great idea. Thank you. Absolutely, we have to make sure that's happening. All right, Councilor Givner?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to agree with Councilor Bacon on the language. I think the hand delivery, I wonder if that's also, any kind of hand delivery, like the counselor stop by and pick it up. I don't really think it's a great idea to expect the administrative assistant to deliver all those items and then fill out a travel report every 2 weeks for it. I think that's a lot to add, but I don't know how we fix that for just this, just the administrative assistant delivering things. But I do like that it's in there, and especially because of the point Councilor Bacon made, like if the internet is out for whatever reason, people still need to get the agenda. So I think it's good information that we know to take it to the post office. But I wonder about the logistics of actually hand delivering it to people. It seems like it would almost make more sense to drop those 3 off at the post office and leave it at that. Thank you.
Yes, although I do wonder about, yeah, it's so hard to create a rule that has enough flexibility that given a wide variety of circumstances, we have the capacity to make sure we can meet if, say, the post office is not running, or if, say, we don't have access to email. I think we're trying to create something that just has enough flexibility to allow us to meet under those circumstances, because it could be, I could see a scenario where we have to quickly call a special meeting to address something, given that there's been some issue and we don't have access to these forms of communication. So not that we would ever wish that world upon us, but it could happen. And I think the goal is flexibility, not to necessarily depend on it all the time. Councilor Bacon? Did you want to speak? If you are trying to speak, you're just muted.
Yeah, I fixed it. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify that my comments were directed only to the language as it related to the special meetings. I wasn't meaning for the hand delivery by the administrative assistant to every meeting. It seems to me that the mail problem, if it's been cured in the way that was described tonight and it is consistent, would correct what's been a bit of a problem for a few. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So I feel like we've spent, sorry, Councilor Janae.
Yeah, just a couple of points. One, I like the language overall that was arrived at, and I did actually research a little bit, which was, what's the statistic left of our great society that has no computers and smartphones? Believe it or not, it's 26%. I thought that was actually rather high, considering. So this does adjust for those that do not have that. So I like the idea that if you still want a regular delivery, and that's traditionally, because the role of the administrative assistant used to be the city messenger position, and they would drive around and deliver these messages all day long. So, yeah, I think if we give people the option and have that opportunity there for them, then that I think, and those that want email, it's just accommodating the newest form of communication. Seems to work for everybody, I think, in that situation.
Okay. Councilor Devine?
Just a quick question. So I'm not sure if this is just for special meetings or for every meeting, but if we're to, say, sign up, who would we sign up with? The administrative assistant that, yes, we'd like our agendas brought to our homes. And he's got the day off, which he has a right to do. What happens then? There's a lot of, I mean, some people want it in the mail or hand delivered. That's fine, but he has a right to take a day off too.
And I think it's in this current language, it says that it could be the clerk or the assistant to the city council. And I don't know if we need to be more vague than that, or some sort of temporary position. We do name that in other places in the charter, that and then we name another contingency that does happen in some places in our charter. We could do that. I'm not sure what the language would look like, though. I don't know if anyone has an idea.
It's been rare, but we've had police have brought notices to our homes. Sometimes when there was really bad weather. There's been, doesn't happen very often, but it has happened in the pre-email days, 25 plus years ago.
So is there a vague term that we can use to sort of name a person that is being named to do so in their stead? Is there something like that anyone can think of that we've used in the past in another situation that we could apply here?
Alternate designee.
Well, that sounds fancy. I like it. Does that work? Mm-hmm. Okay. Is that something that folks are interested in seeing us do?
Sounds good.
Or alternate designee? Yeah?
Who designates?
Yeah, I was just gonna say the same thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say either I would
This is
assume
so
the
fun.
administrative assistant or the clerk. Maybe we leave it up to the city clerk.
I think you should talk to the city clerk before you go giving her another job.
Poor Retta.
Well, isn't it in there though? It says clerk or no?
Yeah.
Already. I think this is.
Yeah, in fact, we've widened it to naming the assistant. And the original, it's only the clerk.
Right.
Okay. Jeffrey, what do you think about that?
I think that's completely fair. And honestly, I think these situations are going to come up so infrequently that, you know, while it's good to think of all situations, you know, it probably isn't going to be a huge issue all that often.
All right. So what we now have, just to read it out loud for the record, Section 12 of the Holyoke City Charter shall be amended by striking out all words after thereat and adding the following language: to be electronically delivered to all council members at least 48 hours prior to the commencement of the meeting. Members of the city council may elect to alternatively receive all such notices by hand delivery to their place of residence or to their city hall mailbox by designating their preference to the clerk or the assistant to the city council or alternate designee as determined by the clerk. And then right below that, it says it has an asterisk. It says the same language would then be used to modify Rule F of our city council rules. Let me pull the number before that.
Can I just ask a quick question? Do we have city hall mailboxes?
Jeffrey,
It says,
do we have?
there's city hall mailbox.
You've got lockers.
Our locker.
So does it make sense to change that language? I mean, really what we have are desks, right? Like it could be delivered to your desk.
Is it your choice though?
It is your choice. Yep.
So you could say, bring it to my home or bring it to my desk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe we change the word from mailbox to desk.
Sure.
Sure.
Okay. All right, I
Madam
see.
Chair?
Yes. Yes, Jeffrey?
So, reading this language, it appears to take out the mailing of this altogether, unless you're including that as one component of hand delivery.
Okay. Let me read it out loud again. So we could amend it instead to such notices by mail, hand delivery to their place of residence, period, or to their city hall desk. Councilor Bacon and then Attorney Bissonnette.
Thank you. So just to clarify, I don't think it was our intention to add the alternate designate for the counselors to indicate their preference to. It was really just that somebody would have the ability to have somebody else deliver the notice if the administrative assistant wasn't available.
Yeah, so to your point, like the language itself sort of walks you into thinking that. And you're right.
Right.
There's actually nowhere does it say who does the delivery. It just
Right,
sort of.
so I think we could leave that silent and we could figure that out as a rule instead of changing our charter.
So yeah, right. So it could say order their city hall desk by designating their preference to the clerk or the assistant, and it's really up to us to then determine with the clerk and assistant who is delivering it.
Yeah. Perhaps, yeah.
Okay. All right, Attorney Bissonnette. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, thank you. I was pretty much going to say what Councilor Bacon just said.
Go,
that you
Councilor
don't
Bacon.
You don't need to put it in the charter because the next section, Section 13, authorizes you to create the rules and the ordinance is needed for the rules. So this is just a one-off. I mean, this is special meeting notice that is from the horse and buggy days, no question. This modernizes it. I think it satisfies our need to reform the charter a little bit. But I do want to point out, of course, it doesn't say who delivers it. You can, under your rule, when you do 3F, you can designate there who is to deliver it. Let's say there's a major cutback in state and federal funds, and Holyoke has to begin cutting positions. So it does, sorry, Jeffrey, it decides, well, the AA to the council has to go. Well, if you designate him in the position in the charter, then you gotta go through a whole charter thing. You can do it easily in the rules, and you can change the rules just as easily. So that would be my suggestion, my thought. Thanks, Councilor Bacon, appreciate it.
Okay, so the shift that I just made in that column is adding now that rule change 3F has all the original language, plus that additional line naming that. Delivery will be done by the clerk, the assistant to the city council, or designee of the clerk. And I can add in the language if required. Okay, now, those changes to the rules, right, I'm gonna put an asterisk there, is pending the charter change, right? So that change to the rules can't take effect until the home rule petition process has been done to change our charter in that way. Okay, any other changes to this or
Actually, if I may,
Yes,
that's not correct.
please.
The rule can be changed under Section 13 of the charter by the council as long as it doesn't violate the rule currently in Section 12 concerning special meetings. That stands alone as a whole separate thing. So you can change your own rules as long as they coincide with this. You don't need to wait. But once Section 12 is changed by the Great and General Court, then you have to comply with that section for all special meetings. I know it's a bit confusing, but it's not required, a charter change is not required for what you want to do in 3F. Doesn't do any harm to wait, but it's not required.
Okay, so I'm hearing that we actually can change the rule pending the charter change. Any objections to that in the room? Just gonna pause. Folks want to look up anything?
Chair McGrath-Smith?
Councilor Bacon?
So if we do change the rule just to avoid confusion, I think we should say it doesn't apply to the special meeting notice.
So what we've been talking about so far has actually been
Unless it would work.
has been specific to the special meetings, because our regular meetings actually fall underneath a different rule underneath the clerk, which is 4B.
Oh, okay.
So right now we're just under 3F, which is the special meetings.
Oh, okay.
Next I know we've been taking these up as a package, which is a little confusing, but next we'll kind of walk back from 4 to 3 and look at rule 4B. We may decide, let's use the exact same language as here, or we may make some changes. Okay, any last thoughts before we move to?
Just a quick question, if I understand this. There's a suggestion to change 3F while we're pending on the other one? But
Yeah, to the will of the body. Yeah.
Right, but I just want to understand it though, isn't section 12 is what is in 3F, right? So the council just took it word for word
Yes.
from section 12 and made it a rule,
Yep.
which we've done in other areas. So if that isn't changed yet, how can we change it here? I mean, we still have to follow until the legislature approves it, right?
I'll defer to Councilor Bissonnette. Sounds like it's a question for you.
Yeah. Councilor Jordan's absolutely correct. It was my mistake. I was confusing 3F with the,
Got it. with
or
the item 3,
Yeah,
right,
the
which is
regular
not specifically
meetings.
named in our charter. Got it. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
We're all
So section 12 and 3F are, let's call them contiguous, and they both have to be adjusted after the charter is changed.
Okay.
The other one doesn't have to. It can be done now.
Okay. So I think we've made some really good progress on 4. Now let's sort of backtrack a little bit to 3, because 4 is a little more complicated because it does involve a charter change, whereas 4 is a city council rules change. So if we go down to 3, now we're talking about 4B, which says no order, request, resolution, or other form of business shall be presented to the city council except as provided below, unless a true copy of same shall have been filed in the office of the city clerk on or before 12 o'clock in the afternoon of the last Friday. And then it says the city clerk shall, at least 48 hours prior to a regular meeting, prepare an agenda summarizing or identifying each order, request, resolution, or other form of business and mail a true copy thereof to each member of the city council at their last and usual place of abode. So very much some older language there. And so my question is, would it make sense to use the same language? Or do we not want to use the same language, right? Would we want to have something different, right? So this is the proposed language. Okay, I'll open up for discussion. Do we feel like the language that we developed for special meetings should be the same process we follow for regular meetings, or do we feel like there's a reason to have different language? I open it up to the body to hear your thoughts. Yes, Councilor Murphy Ramboletti.
I think this would just go to Councilor Bacon was clarifying her point before, just that the hand delivery thing was specifically for special meetings because those don't happen as often. I think the hand delivery thing for every meeting feels like excessive. So that would be my only feedback on that.
Mm-hmm. Does that feel fair to others as well? I'm seeing some head nods in the room.
I agree with it.
Okay. So that would mean that we would be removing the section that says hand delivery, right? And so instead it would say by mail or to their city hall desk by designating their preference. And we would remove the last clause that talks about hand delivery. Does this look right? Thoughts? Councilor Devine and then Councilor Jordan.
I'll defer to Attorney Bissonnette. I haven't researched this piece of this in terms of what does the open meeting law this is really speaking to that. So that is kind of like whatever they say is
We
the
do.
boilerplate. So if they say email notice is okay, if they say it has to be like all the members of that particular board are supposed to get it mailed to their house, I haven't researched that in a little while. This language, I'm assuming, is from some adaptation of what at least at one time the open meeting law said. So
Yeah.
whatever, I would be interested to know what Mike thinks on that, because I think that'll govern what we can do here with this.
Attorney Bissonnette?
Yeah, I think it's got to stay at the 48-hour level of notice. Interesting you bring up the email point, because we're looking at that for, some of you may recall that the current extension for remote participation expires at the end of this month. And while it's part of the Governor's Municipal Modernization Act, it's going to have to be split out from that, because that's got a much longer road to travel before it becomes law. But we would like to see that included in the remote participation permanent expansion in the open meeting law, and also to statutorily allow emails to be the preferred mode of communication for all notices. So we'll see how that plays out in the next month. I think I might add the committee or subcommittee meetings as well to this. I noticed that there doesn't seem to be any notice requirements for the subcommittees. So we might, unless that's in a different section that I missed, but we may want to just add the terms to the proposed language.
Councilor Devine?
Yeah, couple questions. One, usually when Jeffrey sends us the agenda, well before we get it in the mail, I always print it up, and that's the agenda I go by. Then a couple days later, I get the one from Brenna. Is it proper for me to ask Brenna not to send it to me? Because it's the same thing that I print up, just a personal thing for me. I can't remember what the second question was, so, but that's, oh, the other one was, is it still 12 o'clock that she wants these in, or sometimes she's changed it to 11?
Let me look at our rules.
Because I know sometimes it has been 11, but again, I don't know if that's a permanent thing or not.
I think it's currently noon,
Yeah.
I
it says-
believe.
Yeah, it says, 4B says noon.
Unless she says something different. Okay,
Yep. Any other thoughts?
thank you.
Or does this language as we have stand?
So,
Yes, Councilor Bacon.
just a quick question. I believe the language we have here would not change anything that is currently happening for any city council members. I just want to check in that that's correct.
Well, that's a good question. I don't think it would really change a lot, but I'll defer to Jeffrey, who can really speak to what's happening currently with folks. At this point, it would just make the default electronic communication unless someone requested otherwise. Jeffrey, do you want to speak to that?
I mean, so it's the city clerk that handles the agendas for full city council meetings. So her office has been the one preparing them and then mailing them out after they're done. While this may make the default electronic, I think it's probably it'll be good practice just to check in and not just assume everybody will want that to be the case, and maybe have people affirmatively say that they're okay with that.
So the reason for my question is, I thought there were 2 or 3 council members who are getting something in a different way from the other councilors, but maybe I'm mistaken about that.
So yeah, so you're correct that there right now I have 3 councilors who have requested that subcommittee agendas be mailed to them. But but since I came on, the default with subcommittee agendas had been just emailing them and putting up the calendar invite.
Okay,
But
Okay.
yeah, what I was just saying was specifically about full city council agendas.
okay, thanks. So Chair McGrath Smith,
Yes,
if I could just follow up, I heard
absolutely.
Attorney Bissonette suggest that we add committees and subcommittees or subcommittees of the council to this rule. And so then that same thing would apply, that is the current practice, that if people are requesting a hard copy of a committee agenda, they would receive it. So if we just simply add another sentence around notices of city council committees, it seems that would cover everything that we're currently doing.
Yeah, in fact, I went through the rules and I couldn't find anything that actually named in the rules anything specific about noticing requirements around subcommittees. It's not mentioned anywhere specifically. So we could, include another line here that said, this rule shall apply to committee meetings
Yes.
as well as regular meetings.
Yes, I think we should, because the 48-hour open meeting law does apply to all public meetings.
Okay, does that work? So I just added that line now to the proposed language. This rule will apply to subcommittee meetings and regular city council meetings.
Oh, okay.
Okay? All right, well, we just did a lot there. I feel like we need to make a motion that we are accepting the language as such, which would allow us to move forward with a charter change and also change our city council rules, and then also allows us to send this information to ordinance. So that's a lot, and I'm not sure exactly if we have to take it as different motions or as one combined motion, because there's actually a lot here. Or if we wanted to sort of accept the changes, as we've established them tonight.
Chair McGrath Smith?
Oh, yes, sorry. The computer in front of me is flashing wildly, and I can't always see what's going on
I can
it.
only see it
Sorry,
on the-
thank you.
yeah.
If you alerted me to look over to the right screen. Yes, Councilor Bacon.
I would suggest that we do each motion separately for clarity, because one is specific to a charter change.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my suggestion would be, and I'll make the motion, that we recommend adoption of the language to amend the charter for notices of special meetings,
So
and that to the counselor. And we also have to do that as a home rule petition, I believe.
Yes.
so moved.
Second.
Oh,
And
yeah, second. Sorry.
roll call vote. Councilor Bacon?
Yes.
Councilor Murphy-Ramboletti?
Yes.
Councilor McGrath-Smith, yes.
And then I'll make a motion relative to Rule 4B.
Yes.
And I would make a motion that we adopt the language as amended tonight in this meeting for our city council rules.
Second.
Roll call vote. Councilor Bacon?
Yes.
Councilor Murphy-Ramboletti?
Yes.
Councilor McGrath-Smith, yes.
And I make a motion to table the other rule pending the home rule petition.
Second.
Roll call vote. Councilor Bacon?
Yes.
Councilor Murphy-Ramboletti?
Yes.
Councilor McGrath-Smith, yes. Okay, thank you all. Do we also have to make a motion to send this now also to ordinance? Can we do that? Or does a copy or a new order need to be filed and sent to ordinance so that they can tackle their side of it? Because they do need to tackle it in ordinance.
I just, if I
So,
may.
oh,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead,
no,
Councilor Bacon.
no. I'm sorry. No.
I was just gonna say, I was looking at, is it 3? Both of these orders actually said to charter and rules and ordinance. So I don't know if it's.
Jeffrey, is this already in ordinance and can it be acted on, or was it sent as a inactive copy?
Yeah, I wasn't sure.
I'd have to take a look in the jacket and see if that's in there. Are we talking about items 3 or items 4?
I was talking about
I believe in
both.
both cases, we need to, because there's a box down below that says for ordinance. This was other information that Solicitor Bissonnette sent me, where ordinance next then also has to make these changes in ordinance.
I think we should just file a new order personally, but
Okay.
that's me.
All right. Well, if we don't have to. do
Councilor
anything
Bacon
with
was
this
going to
information,
speak,
that's
and
fine.
then I spoke, so.
Councilor Bacon?
Yes, I was just going to suggest we file a new order so we don't run into a problem about a copy.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Let me write that down as a note.
But we'll still have to wait for the home rule petition before we create an ordinance, right? Well, for the special meetings.
For the special meetings, yes. Okay.
Okay, motion to take up item,
Can we actually take up item, yes, 6, thank you. Yep.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Item 6 from Councilor Bartley, order the city council amend its rules to incorporate under our section 3 or some other section the following state law. The public body or its chair or designee shall at reasonable intervals review the minutes of executive sessions to determine if the provisions of this subsection warrant continue non-disclosure. Such determination shall be announced at the body's next meeting, and such announcement shall be included in the minutes of that meeting. See M.G.L. Chapter 30A, Sections 22 GL. I'll defer to the maker of the order to give us some context here.
Thank you. So what you read, it was exactly taken word for word from Chapter 30A. I probably should have put that in quotes. I may have done that, but because there's so many executive session meeting minutes that I don't even know where to turn. I did look at Chapter 30A, and that specific session 22 G1, G2 and G1. Refer to this. So to me, it seems a really easy fix would be to add another part to section 3 of the rules and to say that the city council president or his or her designee will look over the executive meeting minutes and then make a determination on, I would say, it says reasonable in the law, so you can say it on a quarterly or semi-annual, whatever. The semi-annual seems like it'd be enough, but see, like, if there's a need for the executive minutes to be remain disclosed, and then just make a pronouncement and or that we're going to continue to keep these minutes from these particular meetings disclosed, or we're going to make the minutes from these particular meetings open to the public. And you can put a little line in under the index where it's under the rules of the, where is it, for the city council agendas, wherever it is in here, you can make a little indent in there on a semi-annual or quarterly basis or monthly basis, wherever the will of the body is. I don't care, but some kind of regular basis wherein the president makes the pronouncement. And that's the sole purpose of my order. Thank you.
Thank you. I was just looking through the rules around where this would best live. I know in your order you named section 3. It could be 3I, just added to the end of 3 if we choose to do so, which is under the president. But there's a lot in there about, how things are done in meetings. The other place we could put it is under 5 under procedure. But yeah, we might want to put it under 3 if we choose to do so. Okay, Councilor Bacon?
Thank you. So I haven't looked at this rule in a while, but I believe when we are going to release minutes that have been previously held, the council does need to vote on that. So there was a suggestion, I think it was made by Attorney Bissonnette, that we make the review of unreleased executive committee minutes a tabled item on our agenda so that we would pay attention to it and then accomplish a review, which I believe we have to do in executive session to then make a determination if we will be releasing them. And that way we would do it on a regular basis, because I think now we're a few months into it since our last release of minutes. So I would like to see us put it on an agenda on a regular basis myself. I think it gives more transparency.
Okay, Councilor Bartley,
I
and then
agree.
Councilor Devine?
Yeah, I agree. It should, that's what I was trying to allude to. It should be just a placeholder on the agenda where, and then it's G1 says the public body shall at reasonable intervals review the minutes of executive sessions to determine if provisions of the section warrant continued non-disclosure. And then it goes on to say what I just wrote in my, in the order. So to me, it really should be the role of the president to do that, because, I mean, we could get a little too unwieldy when it comes to this, but on some kind of regular basis, president can just sort of look them over and say, here's what we think we can vote upon, because the president's in touch with the law department more regularly than the rest of us, and to me, it just adds sufficiency of the body. So, I mean, I guess we can all clamor to have executive meeting minutes disclosed, but I think if you have things in proper order like that, you can have an expectation that will be disclosed at some point. I think right now, none of us, or at least I don't know which meetings are disclosed and which ones are not disclosed. I don't even have a recollection as to where any of this stands. And I think the reason for that is that it's just not in front of me on a regular basis. And if it were, such as what she just said on putting on an agenda, I think that would help us. So, but that's really it. So hopefully we can figure out a plan that works for everybody and go from there. Thank you.
Jeffrey, could you bring up that document we were working in again? I have some draft language up there that I think would be helpful for us to look at. Okay, so unreleased executive session minutes will remain as a standing tabled item on the agenda on a quarterly basis. The president will, and I want help crafting this language, right? Is it, review with the law department potential minutes that are ready to be released, and then present their findings to council? Like, what is the language that we want to use there? Yes, Councilor Janae?
Yeah, one other suggestion too is we should, for anything that hasn't been released, I think there should be some sort of tracking sheet that's developed that says the dates of the meetings that are pending but not yet released, right? So people should even be aware, like, is this stuff from 3 years ago, 8 years ago, 2 weeks ago? So that gives, and then like how many? I think sometimes we're losing a sense of how many there even are that are even pending. Because I can't keep a track without a tracking sheet of some. It should say date of executive session was X date, and minutes are still pending disclosure. And then every so often, either the president or the body or the law department or somebody should go back and say, all right, this one's going 3 years. Maybe it's still an active item, no problem, and so it's totally justified. But otherwise, we don't lose track of those. But there's a sheet that's part of the agenda. It would just be a line on the agenda, but at least in the clerk's office or with the administrative assistant, if you wanted to have a copy of it, someone could say, here's a sheet. You've got 12 sets of minutes pending because we've got all these active items.
The last time we met and really walked through this, there was a document that, listed all of the minutes and gave you a recap of what it was, the dates, all of that.
Yep.
And that was very helpful. I wonder if we need to specify that in any way, or if this is enough to create flexibility, and then we can sort of, lean into our expectations from there, or if we need to be more specific. I also wonder if we need to set up a mechanism around how counselors can call for an executive session. Currently, and I'll say just as a new member to council, it's opaque to me, or it's unclear to me what the mechanism is for executive sessions to be called. Let's say I was a counselor and I was really wanting us to review certain minutes. Is there a mechanism by which an executive session could be called on some basis in order to kind of, cause a review of these minutes and to really talk through why they're not ready to be released yet? Or so that's a question, because it does seem like we have a backlog. Sometimes you can look in our rules and you can tell, well, what was the specific situation that caused that? So I also don't want to get so specific that it's just really tied to this one scenario that we then get beyond. I want it to be useful long-term. Okay, Councilor DEVINE and then Councilor Bartley.
Yeah, a lot of these suggestions are good. My only question is, once you put something on the agenda, don't we have to vote on that and then send it someplace? Because it's an item on the agenda. And if it's tabled, just say, all hypothetical, if it's tabled, then again, we're going to have to vote to take it out. And what if we don't have the votes to take it out? So I'm wondering if Councilor Jordan's suggestion that we have a list, that we, but where do we put that list and who has authority over that list? We need something, obviously, but once it's on the agenda, and I'm not saying we shouldn't make it public, but how do we get there where it's on the agenda, we're supposed to table it, send it to a committee, receive it? You see what I'm saying? It's a quandary.
If I might,
Chair McGrath-Smith.
I'll wait.
You're not on.
Councilor Bacon and then Councilor Jordan.
Thank you. So this isn't a matter of do we want to have the rule. It's a matter of the open meeting law and meeting the requirements of it. And that law calls for a periodic review and release of minutes unless there is a reason we should not be releasing them. So I think all the effort here is to create a rule to ensure that we comply with the open meeting law. And to me, the simplest way to do that is to have a list of the two lists, one list of minutes that were released redacted, and another list of minutes that were held in whole. And what that list can just be included on a table as we follow items that are in the jacket of a committee. Because this is definitely, these are definitely items of interest to the public. So if we put the item on the agenda, say every 2 months or every 3 months, I guess I would check to see what opinion the law department might have on what frequency would meet the law. But we have to remember that although we rely on the law department to give us opinions under the open meeting law, the city council is the responsible body relative to properly releasing the minutes and properly reviewing them and determining whether they cannot or should not be released. So I think I like what Councilor Bartley wrote, and maybe we could start out, because we know we have a backlog of at least, I don't know, I'm gonna say, by my count, there's at least 5 sets of minutes that have either redactions or have been held back. So we're back in a catch-up mode now. So I would recommend we put it on the agenda every 2 months and go from there. And then if we don't need to do it as frequently because there's less there, then we could cut down how often we put it on the agenda. But those are my thoughts. Thank you.
Attorney Bissonnette, do you want to weigh in on Councilor Bacon's question around making sure that whatever we establish here aligns with open meeting law requirements?
I think with respect to putting the items on the agenda, it's a great idea for tracking purposes. I'm not sure where it would go. You have a rule, I think it's 7, that about the agenda. So you might just want to have it there, maybe at the end of the agenda, just so you, since everybody recognizes that executive sessions are not the norm, it may well be that this is a good way to keep track of it, because you could go a year sometimes without having an exec. The sense of having the president confer with law to determine if the exemption still applies is a good idea. Sometimes, without needing an additional executive session, matters will get resolved. Orders may get resolved. Disputes may get resolved. So there's no need to take it up again in executive session, but for trying to get the minutes out. So I think that's a good way to do it. If a minute has been listed on the agenda under executive session minutes date, that can then, by a 2/3 vote, be taken up that night since it was posted, and you can go ahead and release those minutes. How often you want that report is really a function of the council's prerogative. I hope that answers the question, Councilor.
Thank you.
I also think that raises an interesting question around where to place this, whether or not it really should be underneath the president under section 3, or if it should be moved to section 7 and added as a standing agenda item. Because that is the other option, is we could look at the agenda and say, you know what, actually, we should make sure that after the president's report, there's always the report on unreleased executive session minutes. We could add it there as a specific place that it always goes in the meeting. And that would be another way of doing it and getting kind of, around Councilor Devine's concern around what it means to really name something as in a permanent tabled item. Yes, Councilor Bartley.
Kevin allowed me to skip them, so just very quick, just to Councilor Devine's point, I think if you leave it on the table, if you put it on there, the president can always say this will remain tabled till next meeting, because the president should go on. I really feel strongly the president should be kind of guiding us on this. And to your question, my experience has always been with either Kevin or Todd or Joe or anybody really, when we have another simple question like that, and okay, we're due for one.
Mm-hmm.
But that's kind of ad hoc, right? So it's just kind of a sporadic. I think now if you put it where Mike says somewhere on the agenda, it'll be on top of your mind, and we'll be able to.
And a place to ask for it if you feel like you need to on the record.
But I really think the president needs to guide us, and that authority needs to be with the president to guide us on that one in consultation with the law department. That's how I look at it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Murphy-Ramboletti.
Councilor Jordan.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Thank you.
Councilor Jordan first.
I was just going to go with the agenda item. I like, and I think you were already starting to touch on it, is we should probably just have an agenda item here that talks about minutes, approval of the minutes, and whether they're regular council minutes, because right now our regular minutes are coming in as communications, when really it's supposed to be officially done by us anyways.
So maybe after communications or before communications?
Yeah, one or the other. It might just approval of the minutes should become an agenda item. Just to air a little bit of our dirty laundry from a long time ago, we had a situation where the council didn't do a good job of approving its minutes. We do an excellent job today. But many, many years ago, 20 plus years ago, we didn't. And it turned out we ran into a little problem where we had somebody who we were paying to do the minutes and never actually did do the minutes. And I think if that was on the agenda, then that probably wouldn't have happened, because I think we just got a little lax on that formality of reviewing and approving the minutes. And if, we could have regular minutes, executive session minutes as a suggestion, if people think that makes sense. Thank you.
If I might, was that the stenographer?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Gotcha.
you remember that,
Yep.
right? Yeah.
Councilor Murphy-Ramboletti?
Thank you. I was just looking at the section in the rules that outlines the agenda, and I figured we could just, some of the things that are listed in section 7A aren't actually outright listed on the
No.
typical agenda, like calling the roll on the pledge, like we just do that. But I think the suggestion of minutes, just having a minute section, and it could be for, I'm okay with that. I think it makes sense, but we could just add something into section 7.
So I really like that idea. It's elegant. It's there. It forces a very frequent opportunity for us to be reminded of it, to keep asking for it. I like that. And I think we could do it really simply by just making the new rule, 7A 7, review the minutes.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I apologize, I can't raise my hand while I'm screen sharing.
That's all right.
But just looking at the minutes, 7A5 actually says reading the journal of the previous meeting. So,
Which is the minutes? The journal.
which is minutes. So
maybe we
you
want
could
to
reword-
amend. Yeah, let's amend 5. Yeah, I like that. Great suggestion.
And may I make one other suggestion?
Yes.
If you were going to incorporate a section into this part of the rules about adding an executive session part, maybe do it at the end. That way, if you're going to go into executive session, you're not interrupting the meeting for the public. Like needing to tell people to leave because you're going to go into an executive session. Maybe it could be at the end so that it's at the conclusion of a meeting. Just kind of as a matter of flow.
I was more imagining that agenda item would be the place where we would determine, for example, if we had an executive session. I wasn't imagining we would go into it from that item. I was imagining it would be, and the following 3 are ready for us to review and vote, and if we're wanting to release them, thus the next executive session is, March 21st.
Okay, my mistake.
No, that's a really, this is why we get into these rules. Like, is my interpretation matching yours? And does this rule actually back that? That's it. What do we think?
I just have a clarifying question.
Yes, please.
Is the idea that, like, under this section of the minutes, whether it's for executive, would it state the dates? It would still just state the date and like that they're not ready to be released yet, and that would just be the only like content. It wouldn't say anything else, right? But it would at least be there each meeting that this date of executive session minutes are not ready to be released.
Councilor Jordan?
Friendly suggestion so we don't take up a huge you could have a lot of meetings, right? So what I was thinking is like what we do right now is minutes from city clerk and Jeffrey to approve the minutes of the last meeting. Then we could have a line under it that says all pending executive session minutes, boom, and then there's an actual document that would have all that detail, but it would be just like one line on the agenda. But yes, exactly, like it would say, here's a column with all the dates, and here's the ones that these are pending, and so that would just sort of be included as it would be just sort of a boilerplate until we change that, or approved them.
Thank you. That helps.
I see Attorney Bissonnette and then Councilor Bacon.
I like the idea of putting it under A5.
Yeah, me too.
How that would be structured, I think, is really up for grabs, because if you do have to go into exec, you can have someone make that motion at the conclusion of the meeting, because if they did it then, it was obviously going to break up the meeting. So I think that's a good place to put it. Let me play devil's advocate now and ask this question. Relative to orders that go to executive session, what becomes of an order unacted on in executive session? Your rules don't address that. Roberts doesn't really talk about it because Roberts doesn't deal much with execs. I think it's an interesting question because my sense is it has to revert back to on the table for the council because it hasn't been disposed of. Some could argue, I guess it goes back to committee, but since it was referred from full council to exec, I think that's probably appropriate. But, what we're talking about, where these minutes are, where are these orders? They could remain in exec, and exec could be required to schedule a meeting to a date certain to take it up at the next exec. So there are ways to kind of deal with this stuff and move it along, but there's a little bit of a gap there, I think, between the rules and what open meeting law allows. And I don't think these orders just vanish in the ether if they're not acted on. They're in the same status as the minutes, really. They can either remain as an unacted on item by the council, or they can remain in sort of the purgatory of executive session in its jacket until the next exec session. But I just wanted to bring that up. Doesn't require any immediate action, but while we're talking about this subject area, it might be good to reflect on how it could be a gap filler. Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Councilor Bacon?
Yes, I just wanted to say that I'm in favor of adding the executive committee minutes under 5, along with our regular city council minutes, and referencing them by date, I think would give everybody at least the ability to go back and look at them as a reference. Thank you.
Jeffrey, can you bring up the document again? So we have here currently, it says, add a new agenda item, would be the motion. Under 7A, revising V5, from reading the journal of the previous meeting, if requested by the city, to review of the minutes.
So I think we would have to specify review of city council minutes, regular city council minutes provided by the administrative assistant and clerk, and then a separate one that is the review of executive committee minutes not yet released.
We could create, of course, a rule, but this is like a topic in the agenda. So I'm not
Well,
sure
but
how
I'm just
specific
trying
we
to
can
define
get.
the topic, I guess.
So you're, if I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying, because we could say review of, minutes, comma, regular and or executive.
Yes.
And I guess one of my other questions is, if we're saying review of the minutes right now, do we not just our minutes? Because
I'm sorry?
we do get a lot of our, all the boards and commissions send us their minutes as well. And
No,
right now,
of
they
this-
fall under communications.
Right, but I would say review of the minutes of the city council, both regular and executive session. And then we would, my recollection is when we receive the minutes under communication, they reference the date of the meetings that the minutes are about. And so under the agenda item, we would say the dates of the regular meeting minutes and the dates of the executive session council minutes that have not been released.
You think that we need, sorry, just to go back and forth with you, but, so you think we have to name released and non-released? I think if you
No,
name
I just
executive
think-
session, it would include both.
No, if we're talking about executive session minutes, it would only be non-released because the rest are already in the public. So it would be the ones that were redacted and not fully released, and the ones that were fully held back.
So add the word unreleased.
There's the language they use in the open meeting law is those that warrant continued non-disclosure. So I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but I don't know that we have to write in legal language, but.
Or I could say pending. I'm just trying to find the right word that really names what we mean there. Yes, Councilor Jordan.
The other thing I was thinking too is, and I like the idea of modifying item 5, is this is probably the time to us to update the wording on reading the journal. Because I actually went back to my old rule books from City Council, May 10th, 1897. It says reading the journal of the previous meeting. So this is where this comes to the council from, right? And
Thank you, 1872.
there you go. And my point is
First
this
reading.
all. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. First reading. Yeah. And, but the point is that all predates the open meeting law, right? So now we really should update this terminology to probably say something like instead, I mean, we could, if we want to keep the historical word journal, we could, reading and approving of, the journal / minutes. And I wouldn't even say it necessarily of any prior meeting or executive sessions, or have that as 2 lines, one of the two. But this is probably the right time to, as we're going through this subsection 5, 7A5.
What do you think of this language here? So we would change it entirely to review of regular and pending executive session city council minutes.
Yeah. Review and approve. Review and,
Well, I don't think we can say review and approve if it also includes the pending, because we can't
I see.
necessarily approve those.
Right.
I wanted to create something that would apply to both.
Review. Okay. I guess we can always, at that point, we can
Because right
make,
now
we
our
can
minutes
make
are
a
coming through
motion to approve.
communications.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's such a bizarrely
exactly.
vague part of our agenda.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I think
And
that's
right, some
good.
things are just accept and some things are approval, right? Like communications can
Right.
look, the motions can look very different. Some are sent to committee, some are just, So,
Right.
yeah, I think it's okay to do this way.
Okay.
Okay, any other thoughts, Councilor Bacon?
Thank you. So when we're receiving and accepting or adopting or approving the minutes, sometimes we will have 1 or 2 different meeting minutes in front of us on the agenda. And we need to know on the agenda, I believe we should include the dates of the meeting minutes that we're talking about on the agenda.
So what I'm imagining, it's like a category. So it will say review of regular and pending executive session, city council minutes. And just like today, item 1 is minutes of January 27th, 2025. So I'm imagining that there will be items underneath that will be 1 item per, the minutes that we need to approve.
Okay.
Okay, any other thoughts before we move to vote on this? Okay, I feel like we've gotten there. All right, I'll entertain a motion to add a new agenda. Actually, no, not to add a new, to revise under section 7A, 5, read V, from reading the journal of the previous meeting if requested by the city to review of regular and pending executive session city council minutes.
So moved.
Second,
All right, let's go to a roll call vote. Councilor Bacon?
yes.
Councilor Murphy-Ramboletti?
Yes.
Councilor McGrath-Smith? Yes. Okay, thank you.
Can I ask?
Yep.
Thank you, sorry, I
Sure.
put my hand up.
That's all right. It's good because it's hard for me to see on my screen anyway, so
Okay.
no worries at all.
Can I put a request to our administrative assistant? And I do have some of the minutes that I could help create the list if he would like to catch us up with the ones that are still pending.
Yeah, I can take a look at the last time we had an executive session, because that'll kind of get me started on what's still out there. And I believe we've got a couple that took place since then. One with the full council and one that took place in the finance committee. And in fact, we've scheduled an executive session for next month in part to do just that. But I believe there's another topic that's going to be on there as well.
Jeffrey, with understanding and grace around that it might take a little bit to put this together, what do you imagine is an appropriate timeline for us to be able, like, let's say council tomorrow votes to approve this change, and then our rules are changed after that, it would affect potentially the agenda on the 18th? Is that, but I'm assuming it might take more time. So, like, what do you feel is reasonable in terms of you being able to work with the legal department and our Madam President in order to create this and move it to the next council meeting?
I think we could get the additional header added for the next meeting, and because there already is a list out there that we've gone over with the previous executive session, I don't think it would be hard to get it populated with what's out there. I think we could have it ready by the next meeting.
I love that. That's amazing. Thank you, Jeffrey. Okay. I'd entertain a motion to take up item 7.
Madam Chair, I realized I skipped item 5 by mistake when I made the motion to take up 6. Did you want to save it for some reason?
No, we can go back to 5 for sure. I just
Okay.
wanted to respect that.
It was my
I know
mistake.
Councilor Bartley wanted to weigh in on that one and he had to leave, so I just wanted to. I was happy when you said
okay.
6. That was what I was hoping for.
It was a good mistake.
Okay, so entertain a motion to take up item 5.
So move.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
This is May 21st, 2024 by Councilor Devine. Order that the City Council consider a rule addition to Rule 6C under decorum and speaking, adding the following words as a second paragraph. No councilor shall speak more than 4 minutes during debate. The president and or the City Council administrative assistant shall keep track of the minutes. A 1-minute reminder shall be given at the 3-minute mark during debate. And this was amended to 3 minutes at a time last meeting, but then referred back to committee today for us to explore it more. So I would, defer to the maker of the order. Councilor Devine, do you want to give us some context here, or your wishes with this order, and then we'll open it up to the rest of the room.
Okay, thank you. This is brought up again. It was brought up before, and my reasoning was that one of the things is that the Congress itself is given 5 minutes only to speak. And the reason for the change was so that everybody gets a chance to speak. And I was certainly fine with 4 minutes, and it was Councilor Bacon who amended it to go 3 minutes. And then, I don't know, maybe she can refresh us as to why at the next meeting when we were signing the jacket, why she changed her mind. Because it was 3 and I was fine with 4, and she's the one that wanted 3.
I'm happy to call on Councilor Bacon next if you want to explain or just discuss anything else you'd like to see happen with this order.
Sure. So at the time that we were talking about 3 minutes or 4 minutes, we were talking about how many times a person could speak. And so my focus was on having the ability of a person to speak more than once. And the original order was to limit the time in totality. And so my focus was more on taking turns than it was in limiting the amount of time. And so my intention with saying 3 minutes was not to make the debate time less. It was trying to make it more. And during the last meeting, I also said that I wouldn't support this if I felt that it was targeting a certain individual on the council. And when I went back and reviewed my minutes, and I reviewed and got some other feedback in between that meeting and the city council meeting, and then at the subsequent meeting that took place since then, I've come to believe that if it was not for one member of the city council, we wouldn't even be talking about this order at all. I would further note that our meeting time has been limited to 10 p.m. And originally we were concerned about debate going on so long, and the history of the meetings was that committee meetings were being done over in the full council and meetings were going on to 11 and sometimes midnight. Subsequent to all that discussion and establishment of our 10 p.m. rule, we really have not had a problem with debate going on so long that we haven't been able to keep within the rule that we all agreed to adopt relative to 10 p.m. So I hope that answers the questions. I rarely change my mind, but from time to time, when I've received new information, I have been known to do that. Thank you.
All right. Councilor Murphy-Ramboletti and then Councilor Jordan.
Thank you. My main concern with this rule is just like the enforcement of it. And I mentioned this before, and I've since, I have spoken to the folks at Holyoke Media. I've talked to our administrative assistant. What I just personally, as the president, I have no interest in adding this to my list of responsibilities. And so I have communicated that, and, our administrative assistant has expressed that he may be able to take this on. We also talked about the Holyoke Media, if there was a way to just have the time going on the screen. I know I bought a timer. I watched the meeting from the last I watched the video from the last meeting when I was sick, and I know that was brought up on, why we don't always use it. It's very clearly, I can't see the clock, and I don't feel like asking anyone here to be responsible for looking at the clock and keeping track of the time, so I don't do that. And I don't use the timer that we have right now. So I know that was all discussed at the last meeting. I guess if there was a way, if there's just a way to have, I think that was initially what I had hoped from the stopwatch kind of timer thing, is just that we could all see, because sometimes 5 minutes goes by and I don't know, we don't even realize that we've been talking for 5 minutes. So I just think seeing it helps all of us to be mindful of it. But even the thought of giving a 1 minute reminder every time at the 3 minute mark, that kind of just makes me want to scratch my eyes out, if I can just be totally transparent. So that's kind of just where I'm at on this. I get the spirit of wanting folks to be mindful of how much time they're speaking. Even right now, has it been, might have been 3 minutes. I don't actually know. I have no idea. But I get the spirit of it. I think we can all do our best to be mindful of going on longer than we need to. So if there's some happy medium with just having the clock running so that folks know, I'm okay with that. I don't feel strongly about this rule in that way. I don't. So that's just where I'm at. Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes. Councilor Devine?
I know I had talked to Holyoke Media about the possibility of having a countdown clock that counts down rather than, I agree with the president. You have enough to do up there without trying to, do that. The other thing is public speak. That's another thing you have to do. And nothing's worse than you're in the middle of something and somebody says you have 30 seconds left and there goes your train of thought. So I don't know if Natalia or Holyoke Media has had a chance to work on that, but perhaps they could and Jeffrey too, they hit a button, it's 2 minutes for public speak, you say, watch the clock, when it counts down to 0, it's up to the public to know that their time is done. The same with the 4-minute rule. So I know that she was gonna look into that. I don't know if that's happened yet.
Thank you.
So I actually don't mind tabling this, depending on what you want to do, until we find out if that's possible from Holyoke Media to do a countdown clock on the big board.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. 1 second. Okay, Councilor Jordan?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think this should be tabled and we should think this through. This has come up multiple times in the past, and the council each time has decided it was not in the best interest of the council to move forward with this rule change. We made a big change by having a 10 o'clock rule. And when this first got filed 9 months ago, quite frankly, the reason I didn't come to the last meeting is it's been tabled for 9 months because I thought we together collectively had a good compromise, which is that we were going to set an aggregate time limit that we were all going to agree to, and it's really been working out actually quite well, all things considered, that I think we've only once, maybe twice, had to suspend the rules to go past 10 o'clock for maybe 10 or 15 minutes. So I thought the ground rule was going to be that if that wasn't working and that we were blowing past 10 o'clock or we were really not getting the work done, then, we could revisit additional measures if that's needed. I just don't think we're at this point yet. I would ask people to go back to the spirit of that. We all unanimously had approved that 10 o'clock rule. And I think that's been work. I think the message was received. Folks don't want to be here too late. People work, they're tired, you get past 10 o'clock, it's too much. On the other hand, there will be individual issues from time to time that, people will speak for 4 minutes. I will speak for 4 minutes. I have spoken for more than 4 minutes on certain really in-depth topics that do come up that bear public consciousness. And, so if it's, I don't know if 4 minutes is going to do it justice on something that's a very complex topic. That could come up, and we've had, it isn't too often, but we do have some, if it's the sewer private partnership issue and you're going on a very in-depth topic, I think we should think this one through some more and reflect on that some more, and then if it's about, maybe we're talking about more, not necessarily a cap, but a reminder. Or what are these other mechanisms that, if it's a clock, if it's a little, you've been going on for too long, type of a thing. I mean, people, I think, are doing a pretty good job policing it so far. I think this term we've been really on, again, the 10 o'clock rule. It's a new rule. It's been in effect for about 9 months. I think it's worked actually quite well. I don't know what other people's opinions are, but I've been quite impressed with it. So I would like to give that a chance, at least for this term. And, that doesn't mean we can't revisit this, next term, for example. I would encourage that. Thank you.
Of course. I see Councilor Givner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to I agree with Councilor Jordan just said, and I think the original spirit of this was, we were looking for ways in general to shorten the meetings so that they wouldn't go past 10 and go to, those later 11:30 times, sometimes midnight. So by being more, conscious about not rehashing entire subcommittee meetings in the city council full meeting, and by putting that 10 o'clock rule, it seems like we've really cut down. So I agree. I don't think this is entirely necessary at this point. And if we start to find that as a council, we're getting closer and closer to 10 and going past 10 more and more frequently, we may have to revisit this, but it seems like a lot of the time was taken up previously by us, having a whole nother subcommittee meeting in the full city council meeting. So I think we've been doing a really good job. And I don't think this is really as necessary as we thought it was when we were figuring out, when everybody was putting out ideas to try to figure out how to be a little more efficient. So thanks.
Thank you. Okay.
I would make a motion to table item 5.
Second.
All in favor? Oh, roll call vote. Councilor Bacon?
Yes.
Councilor Murphy-Armaletti?
Yes.
Councilor McGrath-Smith, yes. Okay.
Motion to take up item 7.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Item 7 is the City Council voting specifics. This was a document provided to the committee from Attorney Jane Mantaleski, our Assistant City Solicitor. And I think last time it was tabled, we heard a concern from Councilor Bacon. Again, Councilor Bacon, correct me if I'm mischaracterizing this or not getting it right, that maybe it was not accurate based on votes that we had taken. And so there was a question around if it needed to be revised or not. I did talk with Attorney Jane Mantaleski, who said that she herself had some concerns around how some things were in charter, some things were in rules, and that we were perhaps applying some things in rules that didn't match to our charter. And so some of this, again, as a new person on council, kind of wading through the complexity of this, that there are certain things that even though we may have a council rule around some votes, it applies differently in different contexts. And from her perspective, that's what this chart was attempting to provide. So with that spirit, Attorney Bissonnette, I don't know if you want to give any brief and brilliant on your part, and then I'd like to open it up to the body for us to discuss it. Or to say any concerns we might have, or to discuss how we might receive it and present it to council as almost a communication item. Effectively, do we want to accept and receive this? What does this look like for us as a body? Attorney Bissonnette?
I think that's something the committee and the council is going to have to decide how they want to address some of these issues. I think Attorney Mantaleski has tried to be as specific as she could. Some of these questions are difficult and they seem to keep coming up. And I think it's because they have tried to keep up with the rules changes in the last decade. DOR has been more responsive, I think, in trying to assist local governments, local executives in making financial transactions smoother. And I think a lot of this is consistent with their policies on trying to professionalize local governments. But as it goes, we just got to keep up. And so some of these changes may be difficult, and some of them we're just trying to learn about where they fit into the charter scheme of Holyoke, and make sure that when the charter is to be dominant, then it is. And when state law creates a priority of its language over the charter language, then we need to be prepared to defer to it. But we need to take those on a case-by-case basis. I think for the most part, what Attorney Mandalewski put in the memo about the specifics really builds on something that Kara had done a while back. Probably Attorney Jourdain may recall. But it was a pretty concise piece of work. So hopefully those two as guides, and we'll take the rest of it on a case-by-case basis.
Yep. Good night.
All right, Councilor Jordan.
Yeah, I don't disagree with anything Attorney Bissonnette said. The first thing is, this is Attorney Mandalewski's. I think she's doing what she feels is best in putting this chart together. I see this as we need to this is the foundation to having these good conversations, and I think that obviously I've been outspoken about, I have a pretty strong opinion on a number of different things with rules. I want to just have a conversation at whatever, hopefully it's here because it's a charter and rules. What other better place than having a meeting on rules? And I'd like, for example, the Section 22 stuff to come in. I filed an order to do that, to come to charter and rules and have that. And I think this should be part of it. And we just kind of think these things through together. So for example, just things I'll add to the discussion. There's certain citations here to Chapter 4, Section 6 as a good example. Like the vast majority of the stuff Jane came up with here, I agree with. But on some of these, she'll cite in here, it'll say, for example, I'll just take one here where it says, same day passage of an ordinance, resolution of a vote upon written recommendation of the mayor. 2/3 vote of the council, agree with that part. But she'll say it's present and voting. And then she'll cite down here and she'll say, okay, down here, my citation for that is Chapter 4, Section 6. And she'll correctly cite that this is if you go to that statute, that is the default rules of statutory construction at the beginning of the general laws. Excuse me, just wrapping up a little cold here. But there's a key statement that's made before here, which needs, if you didn't otherwise have that, you need to have what the whole thing says. And there's a key clause that's before this, before you get to Section 6. And it says, in construing statutes, the following rules shall be observed. So that's this rule. One, there's a list of them, but this particular one. Unless their observance would involve a construction inconsistent with the manifest intent of the law-making body, in our case that would be us, or repugnant to the context of the same statute. So, for example, we have a rule at 1A that says these 2/3 votes are of the entire body. So, while that is the default rule, if the body has made its intent, then it follows what the rule is. And so that's why those of us are saying it's not present in voting, it's all the members. And then in the case of financial transfers, Chapter 40, Section 1 says, which is repugnant to the context of the same statute, that says in the definition sections on financial transfers at Chapter 40 says, wherever you have a single legislative body, a unicameral legislature of a city, it's always all of the members. Okay? So then you have what Section 22 says, which says it's all the members. And you read those things together, I think it says it is all the members. This is the default rule, no question. But I think you have to, that's like a critical sentence before that. So I would point that out. I think that reoccurs here because she cites to that at numerous points about present and voting. The argument is being made that somehow this chapter 4, section 6 appears the suggestion is that that is preempting our rules or our charter, or what I'm suggesting, it's actually the opposite. It's that it is our rule governs unless there's a conflicting charter section or a conflicting statute that says it has to be present and voting or otherwise. For example, when we pass the ordinance to adopt, it's a 2/3 vote to have an ordinance pass. That is present. Doesn't say actually present and voting, it just says present, which is fine. But I think that's what the intention is. So that would be an example that it is no longer all the members in that case. It is present. The council voted and passed it by an ordinance. So I think that this is some of the stuff, just the conversation I want to just think through together. I think other than that, I think a lot of what Jane comes up here is excellent, nails a lot of different things. I would say, I did give a lot of consideration to, I know Attorney Bissonette was very helpful to bring forward the Fuller v. Haynes case relative to readings. Again, I think there's an important clause there as well. He cites that case to discuss about, that the referral of an order to a committee constitutes one stage or the first reading. No question, the case absolutely says that. The key point, though, is the clause that comes before that. And that is that in legislative bodies where several readings of an order are required, and in the absence of a special rule. So the SJC is saying, in the absence of a special rule, so the question is, do you have a special rule? And what I'm suggesting is, relative to Section 22 of the Charter, is it's required, and it's the long-held interpretation since time immemorial here, that Section 22 tells us that there's a vote at first reading, and then for final passage, it's a vote on second reading to pass the second reading. If those two votes shall take place 3 or less days apart, then the second vote will be 2/3. If it's more than three or more days apart, it's a majority vote. And by the way, that same spirit is incorporated at Rule 5K, which says that when we're adopting ordinances, we have a vote to pass the first reading. We have a vote to pass the second reading. We have a vote to that the item be ordained. So these are understanding here in the council, and consistent with our rules, is that it's not just that an item comes in, it appears on an agenda, it is read. No, there's an actual vote on first reading, second reading. These are actual votes. People who want to get it done with majority votes, especially on that item relative to expenditures, really all you have to do, and Joe was great, McGivern, on this. I mean, he when he really wanted something to be just a majority vote, he would actually just take the vote on first reading, a separate, because you got to wait the 2 meetings anyways, right? Because if you do it between the two, it's always going to be 2/3, so you can't pass it the same night it comes in. All you're doing is just, if you really want to do it that way and have it a majority vote, is just pass the first reading a separate night. You can, Joe and I have actually talked at length about this, that you could actually come in, pass the first reading, and refer it to committee. You could do that. If people are wanting to have that second reading be a majority vote, that would be one way to do it. Or, but normally what we've done is Councilor Jones files a transfer request, it comes in, we refer it to Finance Committee, and then it comes out, the committee report, motion to pass the first reading, and then we do motion to pass the second reading, And that's the way it's always been kind of done, but you don't have to do it that way. You could, if you were worried about Section 22 being a problem. The other thing you could do that is you could have the committee report come out, you could pass the first reading. If it looks like you're not going to get the 2/3 and the majority wants it passed, you then table it. You table second reading. And then you just bring it up at the next meeting and it'd be a majority vote. Assuming there isn't another rule involved, like an interdepartmental transfer. 33B has its own set of rules, right? So if it's just a intra-departmental transfer, like we have some of those on tomorrow's agenda, those are some intra-departmental transfers. Under the ordinance, those will only require a majority vote. But interdepartmental transfers those also invoke our charter section 49 as well, right? Because money used for one purpose, expended for another purpose. But other than that, yeah, I think these discussions are helpful. I know sometimes they're tedious and painful. I think I want to just say for the record, I think we all want the right thing. I think we all want to do the right thing. So, let's just keep thinking it through together. And I think if we do that, we'll get it in a good place at the end.
Thank you. I think we all want clarity. Clarity is important. I feel like everybody needs to know the rules that we're following. And I do understand that we're sort of in between a number of rules changes. We've actually made more changes to our rules this term than we've made in a really long time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And part of that is we're trying to modernize. There are things that have been on the rule book for a long time. Back to Attorney Bissonet's pointer on the horse and carriage days, or your reference to 1872, right? So part of it's modernization, and part of it is just really trying to work together how it is that we're going to function. And sometimes this has happened in a lot of different contexts. From before I was on council to now when I'm on council, I've seen instances where a lot of the discord occurs because people are so frustrated about feeling like they're like two trains passing on different tracks with such different understandings of the rules that we're not even having the same conversation. And then it becomes just an argument about power. Who can then just make their version of the rules, the version of the rules that we're following? And so I feel like because we're a divided council, that's a very close division, it's going to have even more discord around that. Because it just feels, man, my version is so close to being the one that could be accepted. And it's these factions of trying to figure out like who can be more persuasive, who can get their interpretation of the rule followed. So it's all very understandable. But I do think that it's really important for us to have clarity and for us to move together with as much understanding as possible. We're not all going to be happy with how we're going to interpret the rules. It's just not possible. But I do think that we can agree to work together to move forward underneath the rules as we interpret them. And I think we may not all agree with how we're interpreting them. And I will say, even in council for as long as I've been on it, which has only been 15 months, I've seen different rules interpreted different ways given the circumstance. And sometimes that's because there's a real context for why a rule can be interpreted differently in that specific context. And sometimes I am left wondering, is that really true? Because it seems different than I remember this last context. So yeah, there's a lot of swimming in it and trying to figure it out together. But I appreciate the willingness to do so. I see Attorney Bissonet, and then I see Councilor Bacon's hands. Do you want to weigh in, Mike? Anything you want to add?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of comments. One, I noticed several communications and Councilor Jordane's order tomorrow night. And I think that would be a great opportunity to take the leading case on first readings, all of those communications and the order, and send them over to this committee for an opportunity to have a discussion about some of these rules and how to apply them and what needs to be changed, what needs to be modernized. It's a good jumping off point. Section 22 of the charter is a great example because they decided they wanted to start talking about the power to lay out roads and wound up with
Yeah.
some very convoluted financial discussion. And it's interesting because the rule is, and it's very explicit, a majority of those counselors present for a majority to pass a financial order after 2 readings. However, there's a provision in case there's something that needs to be addressed right away to allow the council on the first night it appears to take it up on a written recommendation of the mayor and pass that by a 2/3 vote that night. However, the 2/3 vote doesn't specify 2/3 of the entire council, so therefore you can say because they left it out, or more appropriately, because they put it in earlier and then they left it out in the same paragraph, talking about another vote needed to pass something, you can say that it's just 2/3 of those present. So there is room for correction, there is room for discussion, and I think, as the chair pointed out, some clarity would probably avoid some of these arguments that seem to be set up lately. But thank you for the time.
I even have questions in it around where it says upon written recommendation of the mayor. What does a written recommendation look like now? You know, so that's just, you know, maybe we have a financial document.
He just signs the order.
Yeah.
He just signs the order.
It means afterwards. Because almost the reading of it makes it seem like you have to, like, have it ahead of time.
Actually, though, if you read the transfer thing, it comes in, it actually is coming
actually
from the
does
mayor.
and have
Like,
the signature.
we can't file any appropriation that the mayor does not approve first. Like, we can't even consider it unless he says yes at the beginning.
Yeah, if I may point out, in Chicopee, the mayor signs the orders and they're prepared by the auditor. And rather than here where a counselor signs the order. So it's just it's the exact same process in the same charter language, but there's just a different internal working of the rules.
And in their case, the auditors also is a council appointment. Is that why? Almost as if they're designee.
It is.
Yeah. Councilor Bacon?
Thank you. The other thing that I'm hoping we'll discuss when we take up the chapter 22 issue is the different rulings by the DOR that allow for certain flexibility at certain times. And I just want to make the point that they may be giving flexibility for cities to deal with certain year-end issues and other things out of an effort to be flexible, but the language in their advice and their changing of their recommendations always says may. And this is being put to us on a chart, kind of like it's the way we have to do it. And we've been advised over time on many more than one occasion that we can't go against state law in terms of being looser, but we can have a rule that is more strict. And so I think this is another thing that we need to talk about when it's something that we may do, but our other rules and our other charter language may give us more specificity than what the DOR has now become willing to do. So I just hope we will take a good look at that as well. Because to your earlier point, we have always had a divided council. I think we've had more than one president elected by one vote. But I've never seen the level of, I guess I would just say, unpleasant discourse around the disagreements as I have recently. Because even though there were many counselors, and over the years, I could probably name 5 who I never voted the same way they did, and vice versa. but we all agreed on the process. And then we did our best to make our convincing arguments. Now we seem to be always having arguments about what a rule means, what the charter means, and this is new. There was that general agreement on process. And the only comment I'll make on process is this. If you have a good process, you might get a good outcome. If you have bad process, you'll always get a bad outcome. So I hope we can come to a more collaborative understanding about why things have been done the way they've done in the past. I don't believe it's been just because it's always been done that way. I think there are some strong foundational reasons for it. And I guess the old answer will be, if we don't like the way it's been, then we just need to affirmatively convince enough people to change it. So thank you for your consideration of my words, and I look forward to future discussion.
Thank you. Yeah, I really appreciate your perspective on that, Linda. Sorry, Councilor Bacon. I think it's a really huge question to think through. There are lots of mechanisms that the DLS has put in place, the DOR have put in place over the last 10 years, and it is a question. In general, we've been given the option to take them up on different ways of interpreting the rules or different processes, and they're new. They're going to be uncomfortable because they're new, but also we don't have to agree to them. As a body, we do have latitude. We can decide, how we're going to respond in some cases. So I do think that a lot of it is, now that we have these things in front of us this term in a way that they haven't been in front of us in previous terms, just working it out and getting to a new understanding. And for sure, there's definitely some messiness in that, in deciding to what extent we want our charter to supersede state statute and which cases we want to agree with state statute. We can choose to do that as a body. And so I think that is one of the biggest sources of conflict right now, even if it hasn't been stated as such, is folks who really want to defer to the charter, folks who want to defer to state statute, and us understanding what our process and precedent is going to be as a body. What are we going to be doing? I do hope that no matter that this conversation that we're having, what ends up coming out of this is not just clarity, but consistency. The worst thing that can happen is that we decide to care about our charter sometimes and care about state statute only when it works for us. And then sometimes we change it and people don't understand why this time this was required and this time this wasn't. So from my perspective, it's really important for us to get to a place where we are being consistent in what we are doing. And I know that part of what we're doing now is really figuring out, how are we going to be consistent? What is that thing that we're agreeing to do or that we are going to do moving forward? Now with this chart, do we want to receive it and send it to full council? Do we want to table it, waiting for other orders to come in where we have deeper conversations about certain sections? What's the will here? Yes, Councilor Ramboletti.
It's just a communication. It's not like we don't report back on this. So that's the only clarifying thing. You can table it. I don't have whatever you want.
Okay. Councilor Bacon?
I was just going to suggest that we table it as a communication that we can refer to for future orders that we know are coming in.
Yeah, I like that.
So that'll be my motion to table.
Okay.
Second.
Councilor Bacon?
Yes.
Councilor Murphy-Ramboletti?
Yes.
Councilor McGrath-Smith? Yes. Okay. Item 8.
Motion to take up item 8.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
This is from Councilor Bacon, ordered that we amend our charter and ordinances to change from an elected mayor to a city manager / chief administrative financial officer appointed by the city council. I'd like to defer to the maker of the order, Councilor Bacon.
Thank you. As you're aware, I filed this at the end of 2023, and this is a concept that our current mayor has stated more than once that he is warm to as a valid and perhaps useful form of government for our city, which of course, at the end of the day, will be up to the people. So because this is something that the city has begun to move toward, as we have just done, well, we're still in process of working it through with the treasurer's position. But as we begin to move toward that different form of government, I was thinking that it might be a good time to put out a ballot question to our citizens. We have a municipal election coming up, to see what they might think about this idea going forward. Certainly, we're having a mayoral election this year, so we wouldn't be contemplating anything now, but it might be good to check in with our citizens and see what they're thinking. I mean, we've got cities around us that have city or town managers in South Hadley and Field, Connecticut. And then, so I would just throw that out there for consideration of the committee and checking in. We could also check in with the mayor and see if he likes that idea.
Councilor Bacon, are you thinking that this would be a non-binding ballot question or a binding ballot
Yes.
question? A non-binding. So more communication, more information seeking?
Yes.
Councilor Bacon, do you have any thoughts around where you'd like this to go next? If you'd like us to invite someone in, or if you want us to actually pursue the creation of the documentation that would allow us to make it a ballot question, like what would you like to happen next with this order?
Well, I don't see this as a pressing matter, but I do see it as one that might be of significant interest to the voters. And since we will be having our local elections, it might be good to give folks, you know, another matter related to their city that they might want to weigh in on. But to your specific question, I have not developed language to this, and I haven't been taking a really aggressive posture on it because I was sort of waiting to see, when we're working on some of the financial reorg stuff, where we might be going with that and sort of what the approach of the mayor might be, because he seems to be sort of philosophically aligned with the idea of a city manager. But I think, you know, we have a ways to go with all the work around the treasurer and that as well. So it could be now, it could be in a couple years. I don't see it as an urgent matter. And, you know, we might be a little ballot question fatigued about now too, you know, so. In my mind, it could keep until a subsequent local election as well.
Okay. I see Councilor Givner. Go ahead, Councilor Givner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think this is really interesting. I think it's great. It's not, you know, it's obviously not a rush. These are ideas out there. Other cities have similar systems. I feel really strongly that some of the problems we have in our city were created by people who were in elected positions who didn't necessarily truly understand, you know, didn't have the training to really deal with what that office requires. So I feel like professionalizing a lot of, city positions is helpful. City council can represent the people, but as far as it goes is managing the city, I personally feel like, having someone who's like a financial expert or like understands, really has training in municipal policy, I think it really makes a difference. So I think this is a really interesting way to start feeling out the city residents And I just, I look forward to this discussion going further, today at some point. Because I wonder if there couldn't be like almost like a informational ballot question that gives people a couple options. Like, how do you feel about, one of these 3 or 4 different scenarios? So yeah, I appreciate Councilor Bacon putting this in. I think it's really interesting. Thanks.
Yeah, I like your perspective around, you could ask for a number of different scenarios, including no change, and then see where are people at. Check off as many boxes as you would be comfortable with. It could be interesting in terms of informational purposes.
Absolutely.
Okay. But I'm hearing that maybe we want to table it for now and let it sit for a bit, that it's not a rush.
Yes, that's my perspective.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll entertain a motion to table then.
So moved.
Second.
Councillor Bacon?
Yes.
Councillor Murphy-Ramaletti? Councillor McGrath-Smith? Yes. Yes. All right. I'll entertain.
Motion to take up item 9.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
From Jordan and Bartley, ordered that Charter Sections 19 and 34 be amended and elsewhere as appropriate to allow for all appointments to the Fire Commission and DPW Commission to be appointed by the mayor, subject to confirmation by the City Council. I'll defer to one of the makers of the order, Councilor Jordan.
Yes, this is a golden oldie by yours truly. I have usually given every mayor a crack at this one. It's passed council almost unanimously about 3 or plus different times. No mayor has signed it yet. I don't know how it is. I know Mayor Pluta was in favor of it, but I don't know. I must have goofed or somehow that I didn't bring this up I didn't get it passed when she was mayor. I must not have had enough juice at the time to get it done, because she actually was the only mayor I'm really aware was totally favor. I probably should speak more with the mayor if he's interested. And I think this might be part of a bigger conversation of, we'll give you this if you give us this. And, the mayor, in fairness to the mayor, should always be looking for equilibrium, right? So, okay, if I give you, he appoints, like, the only reason these came out many, many years ago was, it's just weird. Like, every commission is confirmed by the council except for these 2, effectively. And the fire commission, it just seemed like, wow, why wouldn't that? Or the DPW commission, why wouldn't that be also confirmed, And they just sort of stuck out like a sore thumb. So we sort of closed the gap. But on the other hand, no mayor was really ever willing to sign the home rule petition to do it, so they never went anywhere. I never had anybody come back and do horse trading to say, well, all right, well, then we want X, Y, Z. But I don't feel so strong. I mean, this is hardly pressing. Okay. And this was filed a long time ago. I mean, unless people are like, boy, we really should do this, or I don't know, I have no idea where the 3 of you think about this at all. If you're like, yeah, that seems reasonable, and we could pass it again and see if he's in favor of it. We could do that. We could table it, and I could talk to him more about it. That might be an approach now that it's sort of bubbled up, the surface for this year. I'd be happy to do that. And then if he just says, no, I'm really not in favor of it, we'll probably just give it leave to withdraw at that point. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe just table it, and I can have some more. I haven't had an opportunity to have an in-depth conversation with him about it. So.
Thank you. Councilor Givener, is your hand up?
No, I think I forgot it up. Sorry about that.
No worries at all. Councilor Bacon.
So I'd like to offer a motion to table per request of the maker.
Second.
Councilor Bacon?
Yes.
Councilor Murphy-Ramaletti?
Yes.
Councilor McGrath-Smith? Yes. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We don't have
Good
to
night,
roll call.
everybody.
Good night. Thank you.
Okay.
Hey, thanks, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you so much, everyone who attended. And thank you, translators.